in the book of Ezekiel, this experience, how this garment of salvation will be given to God's people, it tells you what will happen. And it says there in Ezekiel chapter 36, and I can read that for you. It says in Ezekiel chapter 36, for I will take you, from verse 24, I will take you from among the heathen. Notice carefully. Ezekiel chapter 36 and verse 24 there is giving you in practical terms when and how this garment of salvation will be given to God's people. First, he does this. He takes them from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries, and I will bring you into your own land. Now, last week we studied the stone the builders rejected, and we saw there that in the last days, God will set up a kingdom, a stone kingdom, and the infant kingdom of glory he's going to set up. And here it says that he's going to take them from among the nations, gather them out of all countries, and will bring them into their own land, verse 24. And look what it says. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean. From all your filthiness and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. Now this puts this transformation, this puts the restoration of that garment, it puts the restoration of that covering of light in its true perspective. It tells you when, it tells you how, it tells you where. Ellen White, in commenting on Ezekiel chapter 36, concerning this transformation here, when the saints are eventually given the full garment, when they're in their full Edenic regalia, as it were. It says here, the 18th chapter of Revelation. Now she's tying in the 18th chapter of Revelation with Ezekiel chapter 36. And she's saying that they are one and the same thing. The angel that comes down having great power and glory, and the earth being lightened with the glory of this angel, encompasses the truth when God's people are clothed with the garments, when they are clothed with the robe of righteousness. It says the 18th chapter of Revelation will soon be fulfilled. During the proclamation of the third angel's message, another angel is to come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth is to be lightened with his glory. During the loud cry, the light of present truth will be seen flashing everywhere. The word declares, I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes. This is the descent of the Holy Spirit, sent from God to do its office work. As men, women, and children proclaim the gospel, the Lord will open the eyes of the blind to see his statutes, and will write upon the hearts of the truly penitent his law. Other chapters will open before us, and in order to discern their meaning, we shall need keen perception. Review and Herald, October 13, 1904. So we see here that the descent of the Holy Spirit is what accomplishes the restoration of this covering of light, the restoration of this garment of salvation. In Prophets and Kings, and I think we all know this one, in Prophets and Kings, page 725, and I quoted this last week, we know that it says there that this garment of salvation is called the armor of God. Is the armor of God. That is what we will be going out to fight the final battle with. For we are told in Prophets and Kings, page 725, it says they're clad in the armor of Christ's righteousness. Now remember, she says, Christ's righteousness is the condition that Adam and Eve were in the beginning. You see? She said that is what it means to be clothed in the righteousness of Christ. So when she says clad in the armor of Christ's righteousness, she's saying here the saints who are clad in the condition or in the nature, or the saints who have the garment that Adam and Eve had in the beginning, which she says in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 45, is the garment that the angels wore. When the saints, she says, are clad in the armor of Christ's righteousness, she says the church is to enter upon her final conflict, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, terrible as an army with banners. She is to go forth into all the world, conquering and to conquer. So now, this is the kind of garment the church will have in order to fight the final battle, in order to do the final proclamation of the gospel. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, you remember last week, in 1 Samuel chapter 16, we dealt with that last week and the week before also, when we were studying the stone the builders rejected. And we saw in chapter 16 and verse 38 there, that David, ancient David, the shepherd's boy, and verse 38 says, and Saul armed David. Notice carefully what it says in the margin, those of you who have a Bible. When it says, and Saul armed David, the margin says, and Saul clothed David with his clothes. And you remember, we said that David was entering into battle to 1 Samuel chapter 17. I misquoted myself there. It should be 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 38. David was entering into battle to save Israel. You see? David here was entering into battle to save his people. So David needed the garment of salvation. David needed a garment of salvation. David needed something to put on so that he can go and fight the final battle. But now, let us see. We see here that Saul offered David his armor. So here was a man offering another human being his clothes. Now, why did God write all of these things in the Bible? Romans 15 and verse 4 says, so whatsoever things were written for our learning and admonition upon whom the ends of the world are come. So now when we see here that Saul armed, or he clothed David with his armor, and he put on a helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail, and David girded his sword and upon his armor, and he essayed to go, or he tried to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. Now this is what we as Christians will do. When man comes and man gives you a false gospel. Now this is what this is showing you here. Saul, who was then the king of Israel, Saul, who was a type of the leadership of ancient Israel, just as how the leadership of the church today is a representation, or Saul really is a type of the leadership of the church today. And God's people are like the shepherd's boy David. And as the leadership in that day in Saul was encouraging David to go and fight the battle with a garment, with an armor that would not have done the job. So it is today. The leadership of the church is trying to finish the gospel work with their own clothes, with their own nakedness, as it were. But the Davids of today will reject that garment, will reject that armor, as David did. For David realized that if he used that man-made garment that he would have lost the battle. He could not have faced Goliath. But we see in verse 40 there it says, and he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine, and the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And you know the story. It was after David threw off that false gospel. When he threw off and recognized that he had to go in the strength of the Lord, he recognized that he had to put on the armor of God. He knew he had to be clad in the armor of Christ's righteousness. It was only then that David was confident that he could have faced Goliath. And this is what David said. He said unto him that you, Saul, you are coming in the name of of your own strength, but I am coming in the name of the Lord. So David recognized his own nakedness, and he knew that the only way he could have been successful in fighting that battle was if he was clothed with the armor of God, if he was clothed with the garment of salvation. That is the garment that he wore that was able to save Israel. And in a short while, I will show you that when we say here the garment of salvation, David did in fact wear the garment of salvation. The garment of salvation is given to every Christian the moment one becomes converted. Now, it's the same thing in the Christian experience. When you become a Christian, but in the beginning, you are just started on the way. You are beginning to be clothed with that garment, bit by bit. And this is why Ellen White says, everyone who obeys Christ's commandments will eventually reach the condition of sinlessness that Adam had in the beginning. And she says, this is what it means to be clothed with the righteousness of Christ. So, to be clothed with the righteousness of Christ eventually is to be clothed with the garment that Adam and Eve had in the beginning.
Follow our studies at Solemn Thought Ministries on YouTube to learn more.